Hey, good evening, Pool Player Nation. Thanks for tuning in. It's good to see everyone. I'm Jason Bowman, APA's Marketing Director. I'm joined by APA President Greg Fletcher and our Director of Tournament Productions, Mr. Bill Tufts. And we are here tonight to talk a little bit about what's going on with APA as we enter 2021 and how things are going and what the outlook specifically is for our events this year in Las Vegas. We are going to be talking about some changes to those events. But before we get into kind of the nuts and bolts of events and dates and what's going on there, I do want to talk, Greg, a little bit about just the status of APA leagues in general. Like, where are they today? How many leagues are playing? And I think it's important to do that because I think it'll help people understand as we get into this conversation about what's happening and why it's happening. So if you could just give us a quick status update on APA. What's going on?
Well, thank you, Jason. The status is good. We're really in a good shape. APA has over 300 league areas across the United States, Canada, and Japan. And right now we have about 183 of those areas that are open. That's 11 more than we had last week. So there are more openings that are going on right now. There have been approximately about 60, 65, 66 league areas that have had to shut back down, maybe due to a COVID spike or something along those lines. So that you can kind of get an idea that we are opening up, but the things that are happening is it's closely tied to what's going on at each individual area. So like right now, we just got some really great news that Illinois is being kind of carved up into regions. And so they're going to be handling it different depending on what region of the state you're in and stuff like that. They've got several different tiers for each region. And so we're going to start opening up in Illinois, which we're really glad about. And so welcome back, Illinois. We're glad to see you. And then we just heard that Rhode Island is set to open back up on Monday. And then Michigan, the great state of Michigan, is going to come back online sometime at the end of the month. I think around February 1st is what we're hearing. So that's all that's how it changes. To be honest, we just learned some of that information maybe an hour ago. So this changes every day and sometimes multiple times a day. And because it's being handled in such an individualistic way for every state. And so our team up here at the APA headquarters is working hard to provide support for every league area that is needing that support. And even the ones that are open, we're still working with them to try to help make sure that they can open and play safe and be able to deliver the best experience that we can.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think it last fall at one point we had gotten back to about 70% of APA leagues were back up and running. And then, of course, if you follow the data on the pandemic and the COVID cases, you saw the surge in November and December with the holidays. And so we started to see, leagues that had come back have to postpone again as they got through that holiday period. Like Illinois is a place you mentioned where that exact thing had happened. So, but the good news, I think, is, again, if you follow the data, you'll see that the average case count daily is starting to drop off. Hopefully that continues, knock on wood. Obviously, the vaccine is something that has developed in the last month, not developed, but has kind of come onto the horizon for us. Yep. And for all of us, not APA us, but humanity. And, that is really helping, I think, to get a clearer picture of, what the future looks like 6 months, 9 months, a year down the road. So that's all a good and a positive thing. But I think at the same time, as you start to look at the numbers and what they are today, and, I think the last report I saw said 18.4 million vaccinations had gone out in the United States as of today. That's an average of like 900 and something thousand a day, which is great. That means we're close to about 1 million a day. And I know that's what the new administration is hoping for, 100 shots in 100 days. And it sounds like we're fairly close to that, which is all good news. But if you start to do the math, right, and that with both of these vaccines, you need 2 shots of it, right? So 100 million vaccines is 50 million people, if you look at it that way. So as you start to do the math, 100 shots, that puts us kind of like at April, right? If you start to do the numbers. And so you can start to see that we're probably not going to be at those magic numbers of what they're calling herd immunity by the time our pool player championships roll around. As of today, I think Las Vegas is still, reduced. You can only have a gathering of up to like 50 people. And obviously we bring in several thousand. So
Yep.
it seems like there's a big gap that still has to happen. And it sure seems like happening by April is unlikely. And I think, Bill, that's probably where we bring you in to talk about, where are we for the Pool Player Championships and kind of what's the plan?
Sure. So obviously we've been down the PostBowman Road, and I know a lot of the people in the chat have been affected by that. We've all been affected by the postponements of last year going into this year, but we learned a lot. We learned what to watch for. We learned to watch more of the trends and to try to get the information out to everybody sooner. So we really started monitoring the April event in late November in earnest, and really talking about the viability of the event, especially as we saw cases tick up. We saw that the holidays were coming. They expected a spike after the holidays. We were watching Vegas. Vegas was still staying locked down. A lot of states were. We were seeing leagues shut back down that had been open. So really the trend was reversing in the negative. Now, I will say going into this year, just as you said, Jason, we've seen some positive things. The unfortunate thing is we don't believe any of those will be impactful enough to be able to host the event in April. So we've got a commitment to our players. We've got a commitment to the people that have qualified, the people that have stuck this out with us over this time. We want to deliver on our promises. So our first thing that we had to look at is, how can we postpone the PPC? We don't want to cancel anything. We don't want to take anything away from somebody that they've earned, right? So we started looking at that in earnest. And then the other part of this is we have had a lot of leagues go offline, and we've had them come back on. As Greg was mentioning, we've got some coming back this week. We've got some coming back by the end of the month, and we've got others that are still waiting for that day of when they can come back. So there's a real concern that a significant portion of our league won't be back up and running to get the plays and the scores and everything required to even make it to the August event, the team championships, to go and fulfill their dream of going out there and competing against all the teams from across the country and Canada, Japan. So we started looking at both of those things. Really, that starts with us, with the moves. We're unfortunately very practiced at that at this point. The second part of that is working with the Westgate Hotel and finding out what kind of availability they have in the time frame that we're looking. So obviously, we're saying April's not really a go. We're talking about maybe 100 million people vaccinated by April. We don't really want to run anywhere too close to that timeline. So when we're really talking about this, we're talking about August forward, August through the remainder of the year. Now, we are not the only group that has been impacted by COVID. We are not the only group that would normally have an event within the first quarter of the year or the second quarter of the year that's looking to move those events to the fall. So that's something that we honestly have to ask the hotel about and see what kind of availability. We are talking about the two largest pool tournaments in the world, and moving those is not an easy thing. And we see a lot of comments. And frankly, I just want to kind of dispel this stuff. We see a lot of comments of move it here, move it there, move it to a state that's open, and it's just not that easy. It's actually impractical on many different fronts. It sounds good to say, but it's completely impractical to actually do. So when we're looking at the availability, we have to be looking at Vegas. We have to be looking at our hotel partner, the Westgate. Fortunately for us, we were able to identify some dates later in the year that provided enough space to host an event. So with that, the big announcement that we're making today is that we are taking the whole of our Pool Player Championships in April. That is our 8-ball classic, our 9-ball shootout, our 8-ball doubles, our 9-ball doubles, and our wheelchair event. And we will be moving those to August. We're going to move those events to August. When they take that space in August, they're going to join our Masters, our Ladies, our Team Captains, and our Jack and Jill events in August. I believe we're showing a graphic now. Those will be the events there. Now, that puts a big question mark on what about our team events? This graphic doesn't list the team events. You didn't mention the team events. That date that we identified later in the year is actually October. What we're going to do is we are going to move our 8-ball teams, our 9-ball teams. That's all the 2020 qualified teams. That's all of the 2021 qualified teams. We're going to move those to October. Now, I want to say, why are we making the move in this way, right? Why play PPC, our Pool Player Championships, in August and move our WPC? Frankly, it comes down to, one, we can't do PPC in April, which we've already been through. But because so many of our leagues aren't online, we are attempting to give them enough time to come back, to afford them that time to get their leagues back up and running, get their players back in, get the requirements necessary for the event to make sure that it's properly handicapped, that it's a fair event all the way around. And by moving those 2 events to October, we do that. We open up opportunities for 120 plus leagues out there who right now don't know how they're going to be able to send people. That is a huge problem, and one that we needed to address. Now, when we're looking at this, these were the dates that were available. We've got to work with what is on the table. There are a lot of things you could say, well, what if? I will just come out and tell everybody, this is what works. This is what works overall for the most amount of people, the most qualified teams, the most leagues out there. We are 100% aware that anytime you make a change, there are people on the reverse side of that. There are people who it's not going to be as easy for them as it was before, right? And who this situation doesn't benefit as much. But what our focus has to be is on what is going to work for the majority of the leagues, the majority of the people, what's going to be best for all of us moving forward. And this is the plan that does that.
Yeah, I'd like to just jump in there just for a second and say, I know that our staff has worked extremely hard to try to weigh all the options. I know that Bill and his staff have sat down and looked at the amount of participants that we have overall with all of the events, and trying to figure out this magic mix of, let's put this over here and let's put this over here, and trying to maximize the experiences that we're going to be able to offer. And so there's actually a lot of pluses to a lot of this. We completely acquiesce and agree that there's some things that people probably won't enjoy, but in this year where the whole world's had been turned upside down, I think that we're coming up with some good solutions that I think long term will be everybody be glad that we did. And then hopefully, as we march into the future, normal or some form of normal will come back to us, and we'll be able to kind of get back to kind of the way we were doing things. Although probably will be some changes that we keep for the future. So just to understand is, like, we're doing our very best to deliver our promises like Bill talked about. And so I just wanted to give a shout out and again, reinforce that.
Yeah, I think it's,
Hi, Bill, my pool player ESP is kicking in. And so I can hear pool players out there now saying, why should I have to move from August to October just because these other leagues are shut down? But I got to imagine that by moving to October, which is fourth quarter, right, you're buying more time. So if for some reason an event can't happen in August, is the priority, is part of the reason that we were giving priority to the team events and trying to make sure they go off as late as possible to ensure that they go off in 2021? Is that part of the decision making?
It is, along with leagues coming back online and pushing the event out. It does come with the fact that our bread and butter, the bread and butter of APA, what this organization was founded on, is 8-ball and 9-ball teams. They comprise the majority of our membership. The tournament itself impacts the majority of the players that ever go to Vegas. We have to make that event a priority. By pushing it further into the year, we give it a better chance of happening. It's a real hard thing to ask people to look outside themselves and to look at not what's just best for them personally, but what's best overall. And in this case, I would urge anybody that's saying, well, forget those events or those leagues. My league's been up and running. We're just fine. To think about it if the shoe was on the other foot, which it very easily could be in this environment. It could be on the other foot in a month from now. Your leagues, what we've learned is that just because a league's running now doesn't mean it stays running, right? So I want everybody to really look and say, this is what's best for the majority of people. And again, we know We know that on an individual basis, it might not work as well. But what we also know is that these solutions are better than cancellation. And that's the alternative here. The alternative here is that nobody gets to go to tournaments, right? Nobody gets to do it. And then that's not us delivering on our promise when there's an opportunity to do so. And everybody loses in that situation. And we've been working for a year now, just about, to stave off, that conclusion. We don't want that to be the story. We didn't want it to be the story in 2020. We don't want it to be in 2021. So we're going to give everybody the opportunity necessary to compete in these events with, hopefully, most of the time to figure out the things that don't work and how to make them work for them.
I'm curious too, in terms of the numbers, like, again, we've got 2 years worth of participants in all the events, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you factor in the 8-ball and 9-ball teams, because they've got 5 to 8 people, I'm assuming, even though there's more events in what will now be August, it's probably still a more manageable number of people in and out of the door compared to October. And again, we're going to be coming out of this pandemic. Things are not just immediately going to change. And so I imagine in August, you're going to have more protocols for trying to, spread people out. And so does this help that cause as well?
It does. The August event, because it's the smaller team events and the length of time of the event, we can stagger them. We can spread them out more. One of the big changes that we're going to have this year, and it's important to let everybody know, is we're not going to have spectator seating at these events going forward, right? This was something that we already recognized is going to be prohibitive to us potentially running these events. The events are for the qualified players mostly. So when it comes to the rooms, we're already weighing out how we get as few people into the rooms as possible so that we can have this happen. First thing, unfortunately, that we get cut out in this is spectators, which I think if anybody's watched any major sports, that's kind of the first thing that unfortunately during this pandemic has had to go. But by spreading these events out, that also means that our doubles teams get to play in a safe environment, that our captains and masters teams all get to play in a safe environment. And then we're hoping that by October, that the restrictions will have lifted somewhat and we're allowed to have more capacity in the rooms, obviously, because these aren't going to be small events. I mean, when we're talking about overall participation, we're still talking 10 days in August of having over 10,000 people and 10 days in October having, with our increased team counts, over 15,000 people. That's playing. That's not sitting and watching. That's not anything. So we're still talking about very big events that require a lot of attention to detail whenever it comes to how many players in the room. So there may be some other changes. We are waiting to see what kind of restrictions we'll face at the time, and then we will make the appropriate announcement and whatever changes have to come with those.
Interesting. So let's just step back real quick and kind of unravel for the folks that maybe are just tuning in or didn't catch. You presented a lot of information, obviously, but the end of April, early May event that we call the Poolplayers Championships, the entirety of that event is moving to our pre-existing event dates in August. That's
Correct.
Your 8-ball classic, your 9-ball shootout, your 8-ball and 9-ball doubles, and your wheelchair championship. All 5 of those events move from April to August, and they join the Masters Championship, the ladies, the team captain, the Jack and Jill. Is that all of them? Am I missing one? That's all of them, right? So all those events now happen in August.
Yes.
The 2 big events that normally happen in August, the 8-ball and 9-ball World Championships, those 2 from August move to October. And again, we say just those 2, but those 2 are 2 years worth of those 2, and they are still larger than all of those other events combined. So I just wanted to make sure folks got a clear understanding of what was moving where. Of course, we'll push this information out on our website through social media, so you guys will have the dates. But that's the plan as of right now. And Bill, I got to say, like Greg said, I think it's a good plan. Obviously, I'm sure it creates inconveniences for some folks, but we have to do what's best for the majority, right? I mean, none of us asked for this pandemic, and we've just kind of been playing the cards that we've been dealt throughout this. So, if you're at home and you're tuning in and you're frustrated and you're thinking, Why? I mean, we ask ourselves the same thing. Why? But again, we're just kind of we're navigating the waters ahead, and we do believe things are improving. I mean, again, if you turn on the news, you look at the numbers, cases are going down, vaccinations are going up. Hopefully, as we move into summer, things will stabilize, give us a chance to play in August, and again, even better chance in October because you've got another 2-month buffer. So I think that is all very positive, very good news. And I do want to ask, though, so we have some other events. U.S. Amateur Championship, that is scheduled for March, mid-March, just about 2 months from now, a little less than 2 months. What's the status of that event?
Sure. So the mid-March USAM is actually the postponement of our 2020 U.S. Amateur Championship. Due to its location in Florida, and I don't want to say the lack of restrictions, but the more openness of Florida at this time, also combined with the limited numbers of participants that participate. I mean, we're talking 160 to 170 players total between the women's format and the open format. We are confident that as of right now, we can host that event as scheduled in Tampa. So that one is a go. Now, there is another 2020 or a 2021 U.S. Amateur, what would be our normal U.S. Amateur, whose time frame is in November. That one, considering the proximity of these other two events, that one may have to be moved. But if it's moved, so will all the preliminaries, which honestly nobody's played in. Those wouldn't be until the fall anyway. So we would move all that. We give all the participants who love and appreciate that event plenty of notice to know when and where we're going to move that.
Excellent. And then I know another question will come up. Yeah, juniors. Sure. Is that where you're going? Juniors event?
That's where I was going, is the juniors event. Right now, it's too early to tell on juniors, right? Juniors, we host right here in St. Louis, as the three of us can attest. St. Louis County has been up and down with their restrictions. Right now, they have loosened up some of those. The event's not until July. It does involve children who seem to be less impacted by COVID overall. So we're kind of waiting that one out. We're waiting to see. We're also waiting to see what the appetite is for that one from the network too, because as leagues get back up and running, juniors is a big part of those. But we're not sure that it'll be the first part that comes back in these areas that host it. Also, what's the atmosphere for people wanting to send their children to an event? It's not a small event. I mean, we're talking hundreds of children that go to that event. So we've got to weigh all that out. We also have a hotel partner there that would prevent us from making any kind of decisions today either. We're going to want to wait with them to see, to be fair to them and fair to the tournament and all the people that love the juniors. I know I was a bit heartbroken last year thinking about the players who would be aging out of the event, who weren't able to go. It was right along the same lines as the kids that you saw couldn't have their graduations or their proms and things, and it was one more thing that those kids had to deal with, and it was heartbreaking. So I don't really want to have to go through that again. If there is a way to host that event safely at its current time frame and in the current space, we're going to do so. So right now it's still on.
Excellent. So we've got new Vegas dates. I know the Vegas dates. Should I run out tonight and book my flight to Vegas, book my hotel? Is it 100%? I mean, should I jump right in?
No. And the truth is, I mean, it's probably the most sober question or sobering answer that we can give is no. These are hopeful plans. I think if 2020 taught us anything, it's that you can hope all you want, but the reality is going to be what the reality is. And right now, while we're hopeful that we'll be able to host both of these events, they're not for sure. I think anybody that was looking at April, who was told last year to not book flights and listened and heeded that, is grateful right now that they're not on the hook for a flight, that we're now postponing that event. So our general stance is don't spend any new money. If you already had a flight from last year, which plenty do, and your airline allows you to transfer that credit, you can transfer that credit. Those airlines that don't have any change fees or whatever else, utilize that. That's fine. But if you are looking at new money, if you're looking to plop down, $300, $400 of your own money right now on a flight, hold off. We're going to let you know in plenty of time the viability of the event and whether or not your money will be well spent at that time.
Yeah, we're trying to give everybody as much notice as possible so that they understand that we're looking at these things. And then once we get a little closer and we feel like more certain about it, we'll definitely be communicating with everyone so that you can make sure that you get your flights or make arrangements for hotels and stuff like that. So we'll take care of you, I promise.
We're also putting a lot of information out on poolplayers.com regarding travel. A lot of the airlines have loosened their particular restrictions on changing travel. A lot of them have extended free changes due to the pandemic. So if you have booked a flight, we encourage you to go out to your airline, look at what kind of process they have for that. We've identified quite a few. Just off the top of my head, I know that Southwest is notorious for allowing you to change flights at any time, but a lot of the other ones has some different rules. But again, a lot of them are backing up off of their previous stances of paying for changes and things like that because they recognize what COVID's done to travel around the country. So we encourage you to do that. We'll continue to put out information as it becomes available to us.
One of the things that, we've done this a few times now, this moving events. Obviously we did it, last spring, and then we did it over the summer, and then we did it again in the fall. One of the things that we saw almost every one of those times were players wanting to know, what about score requirements and kind of the technicals that go into the handicapping and having to have so many plays. I imagine that's kind of all over the place, and people need to talk to their league operators, or how should they get their answers for that kind of stuff?
Yeah, the easiest thing for everybody to do is going to be to talk to your league operator. We've got a lot of leagues that are in different sessions, right? I think most players are familiar with our sessions, summer, fall, and spring. But because of shutdowns and the like, people are playing at different sessions of the year. Now, for all intents and purposes, we're looking for players to get 4 plays in basically these first 2 quarters of 2021. Be on a team in your format, right? Get 4 plays with that. You always have to have 10 plays to qualify for the team events in your format. You also have to have 20 in the last 2 years for your showdown. Those things have already been in place, though. People have already been following those. So really what we're doing now is we're putting everybody kind of on the same track. And what we're going to say, the short and sweet is, we're going to say you need 4 plays in the spring. You got to have your 10 lifetime to compete in team events. You're going to have your 20 to compete in showdown. For our 8-ball doubles, 9-ball doubles, we already had this in place that they had to have 4 plays by April, right, to be eligible for that event. This extends that. For the rest of our Showdown Series events, this rule was already in place. They already knew it going into the spring session, right? This isn't anything new for anybody that's competed in a Masters or Ladies or whatever else. These things are all already there. It's going to stay the same. For our teams, this is going to stay the same. Even though they're playing in October, it's going to be 4 plays in the spring with your team. On the national level, local bylaws may differ. We got leagues that do different things about remaining active, but they'll be able to institute those. The only other thing that we'll have in place for our 8-ball singles players, our 9-ball singles players, and all of our showdown is that they have to have active status in the summer session. That means that they have to be on a team. There's no specific score requirements for that. That's just making sure that they're active. So really for most people, it's not going to change from what they've already become accustomed to stay eligible for the events we previously had scheduled. But again, because everybody's in a different session, and I want to be very clear about this, because everybody's in a different session, everybody's going to be coming back online at different times. If you happen to be in a league that's been running the whole time, you're the lucky ones, right?
Yeah.
Everybody else is waiting. Because of that, the best thing to do, if you have any questions, is going to be to reach out to your league operator. We already spoke to the league operators. They're going to be reaching out to us. We recognize that these are special times, special circumstances. We are going to do everything possible to get as many players eligible as possible while remaining fair to the integrity of the event. I mean, I think it'd be awesome if we could just turn around and say, nobody has to do anything from here on out and just come to the tournament in August and come to the tournament in October. But we're a handicapped event. You can't have people disappear for months and come into a tournament and expect them to be the same pool player they were. right? And I think our players, when they really think about it, they understand that too. So it's something that we have to do. But we are going to try to make that process as easy for everybody as we can.
Nice. Mini Mania is always a big component of these tournaments. Again, you're talking about basically doubling the size of all of these because you've got 2020 people, 2021 people. Is there going to still be room for any Mini Mania? What's the plan with that?
Yes. Right now, we are planning on having Mini Mania at both of the events. We recognize how popular they are. They're great for players that don't get qualified to be able to come and get that Vegas experience. They're great for people that are traveling with those teams, and they're great for the players whenever they've got some free time out there. They're popular for a reason. They're exciting events that everybody loves to compete in. So we are going to do as many Mini Mania at these as we possibly can. What that'll ultimately look like, that kind of will be bore out over the next few months as we figure out exactly how many teams we're going to have competing in these, which as leagues come back online, we get a better picture about what that'll look like. But there will be Mini Mania at these events.
Nice. Well, I mean, it looks like, again, we're still a ways off, but it certainly seems like, things are now trending in a good direction. I mean, Greg mentioned leagues, some of the leagues that had to shut back down in the fall are coming back online. The leagues are trending the right way. I think it's safe to say we will probably see leagues come back and normalize. And as you see that, then you could start to have more hope about what's going to happen in Vegas. Because if you're trying to keep a barometer whether, these events are going to be able to happen, obviously we try to communicate in as far in advance as we can, but, keep an eye on things like case counts. Keep an eye on vaccination rates. How many people, there's 330 million people in America. How many people have been vaccinated? They're telling us 75% or so need to be vaccinated for this thing to kind of go away, right? We don't know how many people have had it and what kind of immunity comes with that. But, if you're looking to try to gauge it on kind of a weekly, monthly, whatever it is, these are the types of things you can watch. Has league play come back in your area, right? That's generally a good sign. Are COVID cases going down? Are vaccinations going up? Is Vegas reopening? And I guarantee you, when we see that information, we will be happy to share it with the world because that will mean the door is open. But as of right now, Vegas is flat out a no-go. I mean, we even if we wanted to have an event in April right now, Vegas says no. 50 people only. So we'd have to pick the 50 pool players, and I'd love to see the system we would use to determine which 50 got to go. But again, I think there's good things on the horizon. We're gonna have to wait a little longer than I think we had hoped, but it sounds like 2021. Once we get in that last 5 months, we should be in pretty good shape. At least we think so, based on where we're at right now.
Yeah, and Jason, I think you kind of touched on something that reminded me of a conversation we recently had, which is we've had a lot of people reach out to us, a lot of players. They're like, "Can you make this happen? Can APA get our league started here or there or whatever else?" And we're actively trying, guys. I want to say, I know Greg specifically, as well as our legal department, we've been reaching out to governors, to state officials. We've been reaching out to everybody to get your leagues back up and going. But when it comes to like Vegas, we've had people like, well, you should have the tournament in April anyway.
It's a whole nother beast.
Like that. Yeah. And although we're very large, right? We're a large organization. We hold the world's largest pool tournaments. We still only have so much influence over a local government. And I would push you guys to just be paying attention to what is coming out of Vegas specifically, because there are huge trade shows that have been postponed, that have canceled. And we're talking ones that bring in hundreds of thousands of people into Vegas. So if they don't have the pull on the local health officials to be able to host their events, there's not much probability that we're going to have that pull. But if you watch them as a barometer, if they start announcing dates in that third, fourth quarter of the year, you can bet that they're getting information that unfortunately a lot of us wouldn't be privy to, but it's definitely a sign for the good. So that's something that we're watching. I encourage everybody else out there to watch it too.
Yeah, we are watching it, and we're going to continue to watch it, and we're going to be as aggressive as we can and push ourselves and push the situation. Trust me, we will get there as fast as we can. And but we also have to do it safely. You know, we take great pride in taking care of our customers and our players and our local leagues. And so we're doing our best to help them, you know, and we obviously, we ask you to do what you can in your local area as well. Contact your local league operator, find out how they're doing. If you're already playing with them, great. If you're not, reach out to them, make sure they're doing good. If there's anything that you can do to help them, you know, remain ready or get ready if they're not able to start, or if they're already doing it, you know, to get as many teams playing again, you know, taking care of our organization is all of our responsibilities. And so, you know, I think if we all work together, we can really get this thing going again.
Well, there you have it, Pool Player Nation. There is hope on the horizon. There are some changes that have to be made, but again, I think we can all agree there's hope on the horizon. We're just going to have to be patient, which I know is easier said than done, but if we've learned anything the last 10, 11 months, there's only so much we can control. So try to be patient, stay mentally strong. If you're fortunate enough to be playing right now, you know, stay strong on the pool table, right? Vegas will come eventually, right? So, you know, and everybody stay safe, right? Stay safe, stay healthy, because at the end of the day, you know, that's all we've got. And we want to make sure that we see everybody, once we can get back to Vegas, we want to make sure we see everybody happy and healthy when we get there. So we appreciate you folks tuning in. Again, we will, as we have more information, share it with you as best we can. But for now, we are going to say good night, and we will see you soon.